tell us who you are and what happened?
I'm Edna, Keith's mother. I was visiting my parents in Ritter, Oregon, and it was Easter time. Easter came early that year, and so there was snow on the grounds, patches of snow on the ground. It was a cattle area, and my parents were ranchers, and the neighbors were pretty much also. He was a happy child, a very happy child. He and his older brothers had gone to the barn to see a new calf. And it was at lunchtime, and so I called the boys, and the older two came, and Keith didn't. And so I said, "Oh, where's your brother?" And he said, "Oh, he went around the barn." And so we went to find him, and he wasn't there. We were able to start a search immediately for him. It was long before search and rescue was organized like it is today, but they knew how to search, and so they went within speaking distance of each other so that they were able to communicate. Everyone is just marvelous. We felt that there was about 200 people there. And they searched through the night. I didn't know until much later that he had gone through this herd of cattle, but they found his footprints.
Even as the crow flies, his journey from his house to where his tracks were found is 3 miles. And then his body is found way over here, 5 miles away. 8 miles in total.
He was stiffed. His little body couldn't move. He was found face down in the snow, and his little face was scratched pretty bad when we found him. And it was at lunchtime when he had disappeared, and it was about 7 o'clock the next morning when he was found.
8 miles. That's as the crow flies. It's impossible to walk out here as a crow would fly. In the span of less than 24 hours, you'd have to believe that this 2-year-old covered perhaps as many as 12 miles. As it was, his clothing was found ripped, and they figure it's likely from barbed wire fences, either going through them or under them. And even with a full moon tonight, I can't see anything going through this bush. So if I'm a 2-year-old child and I've got to walk through this or crawl through this, I get to this time of night, I can't see Keith going anywhere. I can't go anywhere. How a 2-year-old could travel the topography I'm traveling now, little shoes, and it was sub-freezing temperatures, even if he was a kid full of energy. This is roughly the area the searchers found him. His father was about 100 yards that way, and he's found here, face down in the snow, hat and coat beside him. Searcher finds him. Father, maybe 200 yards away, runs over, picks him up, and he's alive.
Over the years in the Ritter area, when we'd go visit there, someone would come visit and say, "Oh yeah, I remember we looked for you, and thank goodness you were found." And I'd say, "Oh, well, that's great, and thank you for looking." This is the cap that I wore, and it's got little earmuffs on them. And it's my little cap. And this here is one of my shoes that I had on. This is my jacket that I was carrying with me. I took it off for whatever reason, and I was carrying my cap in my coat in my hand. When I had alongside me as I was laying prone on the ground, I had that in my hand. This here is my shirt that I had. And then, as you can see on my bib overalls, you can see the tears on them where I caught it in the fence, trying to go through the fence and stuff. And it tore I've got a tear in the back where the barbed wires caught it and tore it. But those are the clothes my mom kept for all these years.
We just never gave up hope, and he was found. Although he suffered a frostbite in his hands and feet, we were just fortunate that he was found when he was. We never made a big issue of him being lost because we didn't want to frighten him and to make him afraid of dark or to be frightened. I felt he'd gone through that.
No nightmares about it at all. I don't recall it at all, anything about it. They asked me what happened, and I told them I didn't know. I didn't know what happened, and they asked me. I had quite a few scratches on my face and hands, and someone asked me how I got those, and I told them the cat had scratched me. So I had no recollection of what had happened to me.
It's the kind of baffling case that has you sit back and go, nothing that I can put my finger on in a normal set of circumstances in the wilderness makes any sense to this case whatsoever. It's something other.
Throughout my tenure as a sheriff, there was nothing more important than keeping communication open with the family. There's only one case in their mind that still exists, and it makes it incredibly important to make sure that they feel that you haven't forgotten that somebody's still looking at it.
I don't come up here that often. I feel guilty because I feel like, what if my son were up here at the time, I didn't know what happened, where he was, and I felt guilty not coming up here at the same time. It was just too painful. It was hard comprehending that was it. I was going down the mountain and I was going home without my son, and it was the hardest thing I think I've ever done in my life, drive off this mountain. The Big South Trail right here. I've never been up here with snow on the trail. When you come up here and you see the beauty and you think, did my son lose his life up here? I think to myself, gee, Jared, you sure picked a beautiful place to hang out. I don't comprehend an animal getting in. It's too painful. I mean, I visualize many times. I visualize him walking down the trail and some stupid cat jumps him. I visualize it a lot of times, but at the same time, I never believe it either. But I still visualize it because that's something that was constantly thrown at me.
I can also imagine that it haunts them for the rest of their lives. Just the weird circumstances and the fact that they will probably never have an answer to what really happened.
I think the natural inclination for all parents and all relatives is they want closure. It's an unknown what happened to these people, and it extends far beyond just kids. We're at 1,600 cases, and with every month, there's a new case that comes across my desk that's an exact match for what we've talked about.
There's not going to be any one particular person that can shed light onto a lot of the phenomenon that's going on. We're talking about a very large, even worldwide collective of information here. Certainly authorities, national park authorities, law enforcement authorities, they often have their fingers, tapped onto the knowledge that we need, but whether or not we can acquire it from them is another story.
When you look at some of these cases, you have to consider possibilities with which we are really uncomfortable. As a rational society, we're uncomfortable thinking about what else could be out there. But some of these situations are so unusual, you have to think beyond the bounds of what's normal, what's a normal explanation for this.
I think one of the most impressive was a search in South Dakota. It was for a little toddler that had wandered away, and this was, I forget, it was January, February. It was cold weather, and we could not get any clues on the little toddler at all. It had been like 3 days, so we knew it was probably not going to be a good result. Anyway, we were, to make a long story short, coming through some willows, and it was all foggy, and the dogs were alerting, but we could not come to any, conclusion. And all of a sudden, my dog turned around and just let out a real startled howl, just it was scared. And we turned around, and here was this little toddler walking out of the fog with just absolutely no clothes on at all. And it scared all of it. I mean, the other handler and I both went, whoa, just startled us too. And just like the little thing appeared out of nowhere, out of the mist. We suspect, because of just the way, dirty and everything, that probably she had been with an animal, had curled up with a coyote, or we don't know for sure, and we'll never know.
The ultimate possibility is the most disturbing of all, that it's been here as long as humans have been here. Sometimes we can see the remains, and sometimes we never get an answer at all.
And he had monster trucks and semis. And I think the boots that he was wearing were like 6s or 5.5s. But every time he wore this, he said he was super fast and he would run everywhere.
We deserve to know what happened, but that little boy at least deserves to come home or have closure. I owe that to at least that much to my little boy, is to at least give him his life back or his closure.